Ahoy! Ask and you shall receive. This is the patch summary for patch 8.1, the season 8 patch. This is a very long one, so we're going to try and go through it as quickly as possible. Let's begin with skins. These are nice. Now you've looked at them. If you want to look at them more, look at them elsewhere. On to the actual changes. We have a new tutorial system in SMITE that'll allow you to learn the game a little bit easier, especially if you're new to Conquest. Try it out. Variance has been removed from ranked, and you will now gain and lose MMR at a lower rate with a maximum of 100 MMR per rank. There is now a global anti-healing aura that reduces all healing and lifesteal while not fighting an enemy guard by 30%. This affects a lot of guards. Because of that, a bunch of healing items and anti-heal items have been changed. You can see all of that here. Conquest as a whole has received a major facelift with various changes that I cannot all list here, but what I think is important to mention are the new objectives. There are 2 greater scorpions in the jungle. Killing them will amplify the buffs on that side of the jungle for your team. Make sure to rotate for them as they're very hard to kill on your own. Additionally, there are lesser scorpions on both the duo lane, 2 of them there, and 1 on the solo lane, which will give you additional XP and gold, but also provide healing if you don't kill them. If you leave them on the health points after they're downed, then they will give you a healing aura. Killing them removes this aura. There are also gates at the base now that go right into the jungle, and you get movement speed when coming from the fountain. The jungle spawn timer has been changed and all jungle buffs now spawn at the same time, harpies a little later. This means many guards start in different positions. Moving on to the items. Blessings have been removed from the game, and that's a great thing, because now we have starter items. Each role gets 3 different starter items with 2 upgrades each, though some also work for other roles. The first one is a familiar one, Death Toll. Death Toll gives you health when basic attacking enemies as well as mana, and this restoration gives you extra sustain in lane. The first upgrade is Death Embrace, a beefed up version that comes with a larger percentage health restore. The second version is Death Temper, an upgrade that provides attack speed for nearby enemy death. This item tree as a whole was considered very strong in the first phase of PTS and received various nerfs, hasn't been used that much since. The second option is Gilded Arrow. This gives you additional gold for killing marked minions in lane, which are marked every 10 seconds. The first upgraded version is Diamond Arrow, which gives you extra gold for killing basically anything, and also increases your attack speed by up to 60% for those kills, with 3 stacks. The secondary upgrade is Honored Arrow, which comes with a 20% gold gain increase, and gives you extra attack speed and critical strike chance for holding gold in your hand with a cap. This tree is somewhat strange and inconsistent in how it works, but has been favored a little bit more in the second phase after Death Toll was nerfed. The third option is Leather COWL, which comes with a mix of sustain and damage, and provides you with a 10% attack speed buff while near allies, or 5% movement speed when on your own. Hunter's Cowl is the upgraded version of that directly, which provides you with a 25% attack speed aura, and you otherwise gain 10% movement speed. The secondary upgrade is Leader's Cowl, which increases the power for more allies being present, ally guards, but reduces it for enemy guards being present, which means it's very good for objective secure when no enemies are around. Warrior's X is a solo sustain / health steal item that is in many ways similar to the old Warrior's Blessing. The first upgrade is an enhanced version of that can steal 10% of the enemy's current health and restore it to you every 7 seconds. The secondary upgrade is Hero's Axe, which can provide allies with a shield for getting hit by crowd control, and the shield scales with your health. This can only happen once every 8 seconds. Both very interesting upgrades that in my opinion were a little bit undervalued on PTS. And that is primarily because everyone wanted to run this item, Bluestone Pendant. An old item that's coming back and that gives you additional damage for hitting enemies with abilities that ticks over a brief period of time. The first upgrade, Bluestone Brooch, comes with the same effect but scales with the enemy's current health as well. The secondary upgrade, Corrupted Bluestone, still has the same effect but with less or slower damage. It gives you attack speed for every enemy hit by the effect. Both the starter as well as the upgrades are very valuable, and a lot of people enjoy this new item so far. The magical protection item for solo is Warding Sigil, which comes with a passive that decreases the enemy taken by 5 if you get hit by an ability, and stacks 2 times. This is very strong against Bluestone. The first upgrade is Sigil of the Old Guard, which enhances that effect by decreasing the damage taken by 4% when hit by an ability, and this stacks up to 3 times. The second version is Infused Sigil, which explodes after you have been hit by 5 abilities, dealing 400 magical damage, and I don't think this is worth building. The first upgrade is interesting, the second one felt terrible in my opinion. Moving on to mage starters, we have Vampiric Shroud. This is also an all-star that restores health and mana for hitting enemies with abilities and can proc on multiple targets. The first upgrade is Blood-Soaked Shroud, which again does essentially the same and also stacks 1% lifesteal on top of that for 6 seconds. This can stack infinitely, but it's kinda hard to make that work on most cards since it doesn't proc with ticking damage. The secondary upgrade is Sacrificial Shroud, which makes your abilities deal 15% more damage, but they cost 5% of your maximum health. You get 15% magical lifesteal, but this can still be very painful if you miss a few abilities or have abilities that don't deal damage. Generally, I thought this tree was interesting, but only really felt useful for a handful of gods. The next starter is Sense of Time, which gives you 10% cooldown reduction right off the bat and gives you 2 MP5 per 10% of your missing mana, so that you never run out. The first upgrade is Pendulum of Ages, which doesn't actually increase the cooldown reduction, but now gives you 4 MP5 per 10% of your missing mana and gives you 7 magical power per 10% of your available mana. So the more of your mana pool is there, the more power you get. This doesn't require you to build further mana items as it's percentage based. The secondary upgrade is the Alternate Timeline, which actually comes with some protections. The big deal with this one is that if you die, you become CC immune and damage immune and can't move for 1.75 seconds, and after that you get 25% of your health and mana back and are basically revived. This, however, has a 10-minute cooldown. I didn't find this tree particularly valuable on most cards. The cooldown on Alternate Timeline felt very long, and the other upgrade just isn't really anything special when we consider that there is a third tree that you can go into, which is much more interesting for many gods. And that starts with Conduit Gem. This item builds stacks over time, and each stack gives you 2 true additional damage on your next damaging abilities. This can stack up to 20 times or 40 true damage and applies to all enemies hit by the ability. The first upgrade is Archmage's Gem, which is basically the buffed up version of that. This one deals 2.5% of your magical power in additional damage. In other words, up to 50% of your power as extra damage. The secondary upgrade should not be underestimated as well, which is Gem of Focus, which increases your movement speed by 3%, your damage by 3%, and reduces your damage taken by 2% when you cast an ability. In other words, the more abilities you have or the shorter your cooldowns are, the better this item is for you. First jungle item is Bamba's Dagger. It's a slightly modified Bamba's Mask, which comes with a cheap enough price tag to build boots along with it and deals 15 true damage per basic attack and 30% extra ability damage versus jungle camps, and when you kill one of them, 10% of the monster's health and 25 mana are restored to you. First upgrade is Bamba's Spear, which provides you with 50 true damage and 50% ability damage against jungle camps, structures, and jungle bosses. If any of these die, you are healed for 10% of their health and restore 10% of your mana and get 10 gold. Very important here, this didn't work on PTS, so I can't say how good it was. I can say that the other upgrade, Bamba's Hammer, was an extremely strong item. This item activates by using an ability and then procs on the next basic attack, giving you additional 80 true damage, healing you for 5% of your maximum health and reducing your active cooldowns by 1 second. It doesn't have heavy offensive stats itself, but it works very well as an aggressive option for ability-based characters. So this tree is most certainly valuable, but so is the next. Eye of the Jungle provides you with a lot of base stats, especially attack speed, even though that was nerfed slightly in the second phase of PTS by 5%. Additionally, you deal 30% extra damage to jungle monsters, and you place a ward when defeating a large jungle monster. That includes harpies, by the way. The first upgrade is Seer of the Jungle, which increases your jungle camp and boss damage by 30%. Additionally, if you kill one of those, you get the ability to see wards for 10 seconds. The secondary upgrade is Protector of the Jungle, which comes with a bunch of base stats along that 35% attack speed, and while in the jungle you gain plus 12% power and protections. This was nerfed in the first phase as well. Still probably a very strong item if you can find the fights in the jungle. But the last jungle starter has nothing to scoff at either. It comes with basic attack damage and damage reduction, and gives you additional burning damage when hitting enemies. And this is significantly increased against jungle monsters, which makes it very easy to clear with basic attacks. Since this doesn't come with any sustain, you might need some pots though. The first upgrade is MANIKIN Mace, which once again enhances that effect, increasing the burning damage after basic attacks further, and also decreasing the enemy attack speed by 10%. The additional damage to jungle monsters is even more increased. The secondary upgrade is Hidden Mannequin Blade, which comes with additional damage to guards and jungle monsters or bosses. dealing 15% of their current health as physical damage and slowing them by 20% for 5 seconds. And this effect is activated by not dealing or taking damage for 5 seconds. While the first upgrade is very valuable, I have a lot of issues with the second one, and I don't think it's particularly worth it for most guards. For supports we have Sentinel's Gift, which basically used to be Watcher's Gift and gives you bonus gold and health and mana for being in assist range of an enemy, minion or monster camp death. The first upgrade is Sentinel's Boon, which provides you with 15 bonus gold and 3% of your health and mana for assisting any enemy target dying. Don't think this one's particularly worth it though, when the other upgrade is Sentinel's Embrace, which comes with a good amount of base stats and also with a passive that gives you 120 physical and magical protection to evenly split among all nearby allied guards and yourself. On your own you get 60, with one teammate you get 60 each, then you get 40 each with 3 and so on. This felt like one of the strongest options. The other starter is Benevolence. This provides you with a small amount of extra gold and XP per 5 seconds, and additionally you only get 90% of XP and gold from enemies dying. Instead, give 10% of that to a nearby ally. This slows you down but buffs up your allies. Compassion is the first upgrade, which reduces damage taken by nearby allies by 15% up to a maximum of 100 damage, and this damage is redirected to you as magical damage. So you can soak up the damage without moving a finger, and especially if you have a lot of magical protection, you can reduce that a lot as well, and this also cannot kill you. The secondary upgrade is Animosity, which gives your basic attacks extra damage based on your health, 4% of your maximum health as magical damage. This is doubled against structures and will likely not leave PTS in this state, since it's very broken on some guards. Overall, this item tree seems interesting, but you most certainly have to sacrifice a lot to make it work. The other option is War Flag, also an alt item coming back. If you're in the assist range of a minion or jungle camp dying, you get 6 health and 6 mana to yourself and allies within 55 units, and also provide allies with a stacking buff of 1% movement speed and 2% attack speed. So this goes for a lot of early aggression. Warbanner enhances this buff, now giving you and allies 1% of your health and mana for an assist, and also provides you with a buff of 2% movement speed and 4% attack speed with up to 10 stacks for 10 seconds. The other upgrade is Spartan Flag, which calls down a flag at your location when you damage an enemy guard and provides 10% increased power to allies in the radius of the flag, which is relatively large, and this lasts for 10 seconds, but then afterwards can proc again right away because it can occur once every 10 seconds. Unfortunately, this was also glitched on PTS and would proc on minions, so I find this tree very hard to judge as a whole. You definitely feel the setback in terms of gold if you can't go aggressive enough. Last but not least, there's Tainted Steel, which is not assigned to a specific role. This comes with a little bit of offensive and defensive stats and gives you 20% anti-heal to enemies if you hit them for 6 seconds from the start of the game, so very early anti-heal option. The first upgrade is Tainted Breastplate, which has a mix of protections power as well, and enemy guards that are hit by you have their healing reduced by 50% for 6 seconds, which since all the changes should actually be the strongest anti-heal item. The other option is Tainted Amulet, also comes with a mix of defensive and offensive stats, and if you hit an enemy here, then they only have their healing reduced by 20%, however you are healed for 100% of that very reduction. Keep in mind that you can apply this to multiple guards as well. This item tree is very niche and very awkward in my opinion, and I haven't really found a use for it yet, so I don't want to judge it at this point. Elixir of Power and of Defense both received buffs to their stats, or rather got additional stats, which make them a bit more valuable in late game. Thorns got nerfs, reducing the reflection damage from 40% to 30% and reducing the cap along with it. Very unfortunate. Witchblade gets a new identity by getting 30 physical protections, no longer providing attack speed, and increasing the attack speed reduction aura from 20 to 25%. In my opinion, a lot more interesting this way, a lot more useful for many that didn't benefit from the attack speed. Winged Blade gets shifted in the opposite direction, health being decreased from 300 to 250, but it now provides 30 magical protection. Relic Dagger gets buffs for no reason, health increased from 300 to 350, and it also gets 10% crouch and roll reduction. I'm not complaining, but that item was great already. Emperor's Armor gets 10 extra physical protection, just a nice little bonus. Talisman of Energy now provides maximum stacks on guard death or assist, which might make this item a little bit more interesting for many if you play in a comp where this can be utilized well. Joan's Wrath gets 10 extra power so it can compete better with the other maces and CDR options. Stonecutting Sword gets a price cut by 150 gold, nice. Berserker's Shield gets shifted towards a more aggressive item choice, with the physical protections being decreased by 10 and the physical power being increased by 10, as well as the berserk power increased by 10, which will also possibly make this more useful for hunters. Warded Shield gets a price decrease and a protection decrease along with it, so it's more accessible. And Seele gets a shift with its magical protection going down from 50 to 30, but its physical power going up from 40 to 60, so it's a more aggressive counterpart to Shifter's Shield. Serrated Edge now gives you 10 physical power instead of a basic attack power per stack, very nice. Celestial Legion Helm gets its magical power increased from 60 to 70, probably won't make much of a difference. Shield's Isolation gets a massive buff, now decreasing ultimate cooldowns by 8 seconds on getting a kill or assist on an enemy guard, in addition to the current reduction, which is very beneficial on certain guards like Merlin. Obsidian Shard gets its magical power increased from 70 to 80 to compete with Charon's Coin a bit better. Polynomicon gets its magical power increased from 85 to 95, don't think many people are gonna use it anyways. Soul Reaver no longer has 10% magical penetration and the price is reduced by 200 gold, but the percentage health damage goes up from 7% in maximum strength to 9%. This is actually fine because Rod of Tahuti now gets these additional 10% magical penetration, so if you build them together you just end up with a net gain in every regard. And Rod of Tahuti is just generally very good now. Curse Orb gets some minor tweaks to its stats that I'm not going to go into, and Doom Orb gets its movement speed, the base movement speed, reduced from 6% to 4%, which makes sense on the new map. Probably still a good item. Shifter's Shield gets its physical protection increased from 15 to 25, and the protections while under 75% health from 35 to 40, and at the same time the price is shifted down by 50, so just a really good benefit here for, in my opinion, not even a bad item. Frostbound Hammer gets its power increased from 25 to 35 and the attack speed reduction increased from 15% to 25%, which could make this a relatively oppressive early-ish aggression choice now. Moonforged Hammer has its health increased from 200 to 250, the power however is decreased from 50 to 40 and the passive effect is increased from 15 to 20%, so that this works better on tanks and worse on non-tanks. Sledge sees a reduction in health from 300 to 250, and the protections per stack go down from 10 to 8. To be honest, it's probably still a good item. Shield of Regrowth had its movement speed decreased on the passive from 40 to 30%, probably still good for those who use it already, and part of the reason for the nerf is the new map. Dominance is a new item in the Charged Morningstar tree, coming with power, mana, MP5, and 10% physical penetration, and your basic attacks gain an additional 10% physical penetration. In my opinion, a little bit overvalued compared to Titan's Bane at the moment. Atalanta's Bow finally had its penetration decreased from 20% to 10%, but the cost is also reduced from 2,450 to 2,200 gold. Now you build it for the passive. Executioner has its maximum stack count increased from 3 to 4, which means it can now build up to 28% penetration, and it's back on the menu. Many tier 1 and tier 2 crit items see changes, with the small crit chances being removed from them and them getting price adjustments as well as power adjustments in return, so that crit will purely be focused on fully upgraded items now. In that context, Rage gets its power increased from 20 to 30 and the cost increased from 2,400 to 2,500 gold, which is a worthy trade-off in my opinion. Deathbringer gets its physical power increased from 40 to 50 to make it a little bit more valuable in late game again. Shadowsteel Shuriken gets its power increased from 30 to 40 and the attack speed from 10 to 15%, since it's kind of being overhauled in the context of the anti-heal stuff anyways. Wind Demon gets its critical strike chance increased from 15 to 20%, and Poison Star gets its price decreased from 2,500 to 2,300 gold, and the Poison Slow is decreased from 15 to 10%. Janus gets a minor rework, but disregard the part about the portal here, that didn't happen yet because there were some other issues with it. Unstable Vortex can now hit in the middle of it, and through space and time can no longer one-shot targets at full health, and is capped at 75% of a target's maximum health, and is also louder. Overall, these changes are not as drastic as they would seem at first, since the only thing that it really changes is that you can very reliably hit the 2 now. Everything else kind of stays the same for him so far. Bakasura gets a nerf to his Insatiable Hunger, decreasing the attack speed gain by 2% per stack, so that he's not too fast on the new map. Ra gets his movement speed increased by 1% per stack, and Poseidon gets his movement speed decreased by 5% at maximum tide. Poseidon is still really, really good. Agni's Combustion gets buffed when you basic attack an enemy guard, and you now get 2 stacks of the passive effect, which is nice but unfortunately didn't work on PTS. Chernobog gets a buff to Vicious Barrage, increasing the attack speed from 20 to 60% to 40 to 60%, and decreasing the mana cost from 70 to 90, 60 to 80. This is especially huge because in our tier list yesterday we kinda determined that Chernobog's probably gonna be really good on the new map anyways. Feel free to check that out if you haven't yet. Karen is getting a buff to his passive, now providing up to 25 physical power to allies that are being healed and up to 50 magical power. Also a guard that could do very well in a Bluestone meta. Kronos gets a drastic increase to his attack speed per level from 0.8% to 1.5%, which should result in a 14% gain. In addition to that, his stop time has its scaling increased by 10% in total. Danzaburo gets a nerf to dubious savings, decreasing the bonus power from each pout from 10 to 6, and decreasing the base damage from Fool's Gold has 1 from 70 to 290 to 70 to 270, and the damage from subsequent hits of moneybags and explosions from 20 to 15%. This won't make a difference, he will still be incredibly strong. Fenrir gets a buff to various things. Unchained gets its physical power scaling increased from 80% to 95%, 15% scaling on Assassin, quite drastic. And Seething Howl now immediately generates 2 runes upon casting, which is huge for engages from the jungle especially. Brutalize also gets a 10% increased AoE damage. The cooldown of Hachiman's Eagle Eye is reduced by 2 seconds, however he gets a pretty drastic nerf because he can no longer immediately dash after coming off his ultimate. Hercules Earthbreaker sees a significant damage increase from 80 to 260 to 90 to 290. If you're good with Herc, you're gonna feel this one. Izanami gets a projectile speed increase, which actually ended up being very drastic and allows her to attack very quickly in late game, with her attacks being very hard to juke. Melvin gets a scaling decreased on Frostbolt from 60 to 55%, but gets a change to Radiate that decreases the time between ticks down to half, and then gives the ticks a different scaling. So previously this ability was 40 to 200 damage, and now it's 48 to 240. He also benefits a lot from other changes, so he will probably be very strong. Ne Zha gets a major overhaul. Flaming Spear gets its healing changed from 0.75 of your maximum health to 2 up to 10 plus 5% of your physical power, which was nerfed after the first stage of PTS where he healed way too much. His Sash, his 3, can no longer crit, but the damage has been increased from 70 to 190 to 70 to 270, and the scaling has been increased from 100 to 150% to somewhat offset the loss of crit. His ultimate Windfire Wheels also got an increased beats window by 0.4 seconds, which means his ability is a whole lot easier to beat. But on the other hand, upon landing you get 20 to 40 protections for 5 seconds, so if you get a target, you can do a lot more after. Raging gets various buffs to his kit. Percussive Storm gets its cooldown reduced by 1 second down to 9 seconds, and Reiju gets the cooldown increased from 16 to 12 seconds to 14 to 10 seconds, so 2 flat down there. And Thunder Crash gets a scaling increase from 40 to 60 total, so he should be doing a lot better. Ram gets the same change that Hachiman gets, where when he comes out of his ultimate, he cannot dash right away, there's a little bit of a delay first, so he's going to be much easier to catch off. Sol gets a buff to Unstable Manifestation, increasing her total attack speed while under the effect by 5%, and Stellar Burst gets its scaling increased by 10%. If you compare that to Kronos, these buffs are actually a fair bit less. As I mentioned, Death Toll was nerfed coming off PTS, decreasing the scaling on that. The power of Death Embrace was reduced a little bit as well. Mannequin Scepter had some adjustments to its values. Eye of the Jungle had its base attack speed reduced, and Protector of the Jungle had the passive bonus reduced. Bombus Dagger got its bonus damage increased from 15 to 20 true damage for basic attack, and the alternate timeline no longer provides plus 15 MP5. Danzaburo had a much needed increase to the volume of his ultimate. There's some more info in the patch notes about things that will come over the season, but those are not really relevant for tomorrow yet. So at this point, if you enjoyed the video, feel free to hit the sub button and maybe the bell so you get notified of other upcoming SMITE content for Season 8. And other than that, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope to see you for the next one soon. ZiSotto, out.